Hello there, right here we got a brand new snapshot. The first one of the year for the Java edition. This is 22W03A, and this snapshot is going to fix bugs before they're coming out with the 1.18.2 version, which is aimed to fix some problems before moving on to the wild update with their snapshots. The first change that they did is how you input seeds into Minecraft. So seed 0 is no longer handled as a special case. They also changed it so if you accidentally have a space in the beginning or after the numbers, they'll no longer count that as a different seed. Instead, it'll just trim that off. They also changed it so that the Christmas present look will no longer be put on top of ender chests. So ender chests won't be mistaken as normal chests. But normal chests and double chests and trapped ones will still get the present look. The locate command will now use namespace ID parameters. They also came out with a new place feature command, which allows you to place different features which are inside of the world. Let's go ahead and give it a try. Let's place an azalea tree. Oh yeah, look at that. There's tons of options. Let's see, bamboo, basalt, birch, blackstone blobs, bonus chest, cave vines, coral, cave of triple leaves, crimson, dark oak, desert wells. Let's just go through all of them. There's a ton of them. All the different types of ores, pretty much every little thing that you see that populates the surface. Now, some of them do fail, which I'm not sure why, but this is actually really nice and will be great for testing because sometimes you're just trying to get different features that you typically find in a world rather than actually fighting them. We could just spawn them in. Now, in this snapshot, we also got a whole bunch of bug fixes, which I'll go over later. But first I want to cover some information about the wild update. King B-Dogs confirmed my prediction from this video where they're planning on removing the simplicity of aggroing pigmen. Currently, if you would aggro one pigman, then the guy in the far distance also gets mad. Now every new pigman that spawns into the game will also get mad, and then they'll all come towards you and die. And since they're technically got mad because of you hitting one of their fellows, they all think that they should be mad at you. Therefore, when they die, they drop the XP like you killed them yourself, as well as loot that as if you kill them by player means. They want to remove this from the game. That wouldn't really break the farm. You just have to let them come into here and then have an auto clicker and swing at them with a sword. Or you could use my other pigman farm, which uses other entities to get them mad, such as like an iron golem or a hoglin. Given that I have been playing this game for over 12.5 years, I did reply to his tweet, just looking at some of the problems that may occur when trying to remove the pigman XP farm, but come in with the skulk blocks that are supposed to absorb the XP from mobs that die. One of the main problems is, can the blocks absorb enough XP to equal the amount of mobs that are dying? They did say that depending on what type of mob dies, will produce different amounts of XPs. So breaking a skulk block that pigman produce upon death would produce more XPs than a skulk block that a chicken died on top of. That means the skulk blocks must contain some kind of information. Of course, if you silk touch them, are those two blocks to be separate? Are they not going to be able to stack? Will they still be able to be moved around with pistons now that they contain information? Now, there is a solution to this, which is the one that they're trying to introduce with the combat snapshots. If you don't know, Olruf kind of took over the combat snapshots where Jeb is no longer working on it. But in there, they actually added so that if you hold down your left button while holding a sword, your person will automatically swing every so often without having to use an auto clicker or without having to constantly click with your fingers. This is something I've been advocating for many years now and would be a solution to the pigman XP farm. What do you guys think about the skulk blocks as well as the auto attacking? I'm pretty excited for all these new features. Even if pigman XP farm gets a little bit slower, if you guys seen my video about the new skulk blocks and making an enderman farm, it's actually already possible to be AFK and get tons of XP. I also suggested that they do more with XP combining so that the XP orbs themselves don't create tons of entities. They combine into bigger ones, the players can take them in faster, plus there will be less overall orbs floating about. Now let's take a look at all the different snapshot bug fixes and how they will change your gameplay. So make sure you're part of the 30% who are subscribed, and let's get into it. Staying on solid entities such as boats or shulkers over top of air will no longer kick the player for flying. This also applies to jumping and entering as a passenger. This also applies to riding a boat with no gravity or using Riptide to fly. There was a problem that the knockback resistance of armor wasn't working as it was intended, where it was not only giving the player knockback resistance 50% of the time, but 50% of the time it was also not giving the player knockback at all. MLGing with twisted vines wasn't consistent. Sometimes you would actually take damage. This is something I mentioned way back when they were actually added into the game, but they finally got around to fixing it. The stalactites are able to make stalagmites from the ground, but in some cases we're able to do this even through different types of blocks like a cauldron. Some blocks that negate fall damage such as powder snow were actually allowing mobs to take damage on them. Powder snow used to be in this category, but they changed it in 1.18, so I had to fix my mob farm to not use it, but it also affects things like cobwebs, berry bushes, ladders, vines, where mobs would take damage from it rather than being slowed down by it. This was actually kind of useful because mobs could actually die on top of this, but their items could still fall through and we could collect them using water streams rather than having to use redstone or a bunch of hoppers. And now the other cases are also fixed. If you would try to give yourself a block with a special block state tag, it would actually crash your game. All trees within meadows are supposed to have bee nests, but in some cases they weren't. Powder snow could generate underneath the water where it wasn't supposed to. Sandstone was not generating as thick as it used to. Now it's been reverted. When generating new chunks, it was possible to see the entities inside of that chunk before the actual blocks, kind of giving you like X-ray. With that now fixed, it's unlikely for speedrunners to get sneak peeks of stuff unintentionally. They fixed some inconsistencies to do with mobs suffocating based off of their position. They fixed this bug that I reported during some testing of 1.18 where we noticed that there was 2,000 entities in a very specific area in a brand new world. And I just happened to find it when my frames went literally down to like almost zero when I faced towards a specific direction. We did figure out that all the entities were actually falling blocks that were kind of stuck in a limbo where they couldn't finish falling. And I believe the conclusion was that there was some structure over there like an Oshi monument that updated a whole bunch of gravel and it was all falling at once. But due to the render distance it couldn't finish. But now the bug is fixed. The view angle of the player actually changes depending on if another player enters or exits the boat. It fixed this problem with the console spamming skipping update from removed player. I had the same problem on my supporter server, so I'm glad that this is now fixed. It fixed a bug where raids were able to spawn outside the simulation distance around the player. This is different than the render distance, which you can see. This was causing the raiders to be frozen in the distance and not move towards the village that they wanted to raid. Now this didn't affect my raid farm because it's built over ocean, so the only place it can spawn in is this platform up above. But maybe with this new change it's possible in single player or in multiplayer to turn down the simulation distance, forcing the raids to occur at the very center circle rather than the outer rings. They fixed a problem where updating to 1.18 was causing chests to be invisible. They did have this problem early on in the snapshot, but they thought they fixed it, but it seemed like it was still in the game in some cases. And it was also causing the containers to be emptied. When flying with Elytra, then colliding with floating water, it wasn't resetting the fall damage, you'd end up dying. Baby turtles were actually suffocating inside of soul sand. Now they'll no longer do that. Underwater fog wasn't hiding the edge of chunks correctly at low render distance. With certain graphics cards, the blindness effect wasn't actually working. Typically, you can't see very far inside of powder snow, but with the blindness effect, you're actually able to see further. They also fixed some other blindness effects, such as you could see the sky in some situations. They recently changed it so fog is no longer appears around the player in a sphere, but now cylindrically. This cylindrical effect is also applying to the fog effects of void, blindness, water, lava, and powder snow. Ever since 1.18, there has been some glitchy chunk rendering, which is now resolved. In the controls menu here, the done button is way too low compared to all the other done buttons in the menu. Despite the world now being deeper in 1.18, the spread player command wasn't actually allowing players to be placed down low. There was a problem that the game was removing the visuals of blocks really far away. This is called calling, and typically is done when the player isn't looking at something to help with their performance. But it was affecting really long caves underground, which made it look like there was sky at the very end. Powder Snow had a tag that said that ghosts would spawn on top of it, which has been removed. Snow Blocks and Powder Snow also had the incorrect tag for Azalea root replacement. During the generation of dripstone clusters, it was sometimes creating holes in the ground inside of aquifers. They also fixed a memory leak which would occur when loading old pre-1.18 chunks. If you do F3 plus A, it will reload all the chunks. In some cases, this was actually causing crashes. Now come join me at my Twitch live streams, which are every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, where you guys, the viewers, can join me as we play around with the newest features. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!